I'm Anthony Weaver, a lead risk assessor with the Lead Paint Detectives based in Toledo, Ohio. I'm interviewing Dr. Marilynne Wood, answering questions surrounding the topic My child has lead poisoning. What do I do now? In part four, I finished the interview with Dr. Wood as we talk about and answer questions about how to minimize exposure to lead dust via lead safe cleaning techniques. Now let's get to part four of the interview with Dr. Marilynne Wood. In my job, I hand out brochures to show people how to minimize their exposure to lead dust. Lead dust is invisible, and it doesn't take that much. It is said that 1 gram of sugar in a sugar, which is basically a sugar packet, we are trained that basically that can actually contaminate at least the whole first floor of a house and possibly the rest of the house, and it's only 1 gram. So that is not, as we stated earlier in a previous video, that's just not much. It doesn't take much lead dust to cause lead poisoning problems. So what is your suggestions to minimize exposure to lead dust?
I think the most important is when you're cleaning to do damp and wet mopping, because otherwise we're just shoving it around to other areas of the house.
Yes.
And we haven't encapsulated it and gotten rid of it. So
Mhm.
we want to use like wet mitts or wet mops or damp. So
Disposable supplies is a big one. We don't want to be using, I know this for a fact, we don't want to be using microfiber cloths and microfiber mop heads.
Right.
Because those, no matter what you do when you use them, I've had areas, I've tested areas on floors that have failed because of a microfiber cloth was used. And all that does is, I know it just spreads lead dust around. They're made of plastic, and the plastic isn't porous enough to pull up the lead dust. And so you're just moving it around. You're really not picking it up.
Yeah.
One of the things I have found is something very simple. A few drops of Dawn in water works really well. They say on the commercials, Dawn takes grease out of your way. Well, it's great for lead dust. For some reason, those soap bubbles just pick up the lead dust, and you're able to use paper towels and swoop it out of your way.
Yeah, and you gotten out of the, like even cotton cloths and things like that, or things you can throw away.
Yeah.
are ideal. Yeah.
Disposable is the one that's ideal, is because when you're cleaning your window, and especially your window trough, if you're using paper towels, which is what I suggest, you will go through quite a few of them. And the other number one thing you always have to remember when you're cleaning lead safe, wear gloves. Gotta always wear gloves.
Right.
You never want to do this without, because if you get lead dust on your hands as a parent, and then you go after cleaning and playing with your kids, then you've got it on your hands. Next thing you know, you're touching them, and you're touching their hands, and then they just put their hands in their mouth. So you're still having the problem.
Transmitting it all
Yeah,
over,
transmitting it. So cleaning the window trough, the windowsill, and your floors, and yes, it is just a little Dawn and water, and using disposable supplies. The EPA does suggest Swiffers, Swiffer wet mop heads, but those can be expensive because you kind of go through them pretty quick. You can go to the dollar store and buy the generic ones. You can even buy the dry pads, but you get them wet make sure you don't dry pad sweep. You get the dry pad even wet and sweep that as well. Always use a wet, you're always looking for a wet situation when it comes to your mop heads and your rags.
And I think too, be mindful of your children's toys, because they're on the floor and then they put them in their mouth, and so we should anything, because especially toddlers, we're talking about 1 and 2 year olds that we're so concerned that we want to be sure their toys are clean. I remember our students were in daycares and we put them all in the sink and scrub them down, and that's a good practice, because they're on the floor.
Yes, and oftentimes I find when I've gone into people's homes, they store, a lot of times right next to the window, that's where they're storing their toys. And a lot of times it's the window trough is where often the houses fail the most. It's not the floors, it's usually not the sill unless the sill is deteriorated. have a few problems with that, deteriorated windowsills. So if your windowsills deteriorate, you got to get a clear coat or some paint on that.
Seal
And
that up.
seal, yeah, you want to make sure that's sealed off. But getting those window troughs clean, because you have a screen, a lot of windows have a screen, it buffers the wind, and anything that dirt comes through it goes right down into your window trough. Well, then your kids go walking up to the window, hey mom, this looks great, I'm looking out the window, and they put their fingers right in the trough and then they put it in their mouth, and that's where a lot of the lead dust does sit. And you were saying the toys, a lot of times toys are stored right underneath a window that's got a lead dust problem. And so yes, it's very important just to wipe your toys down. You can use, now with that, I also know you can use baby wipes, you can anything as long as it's wet.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of soap in it, as long as it's wet. And I want to keep stressing that's what we want to do.
Yeah, because the dry cleaning is.
No, dry cleaning doesn't work because
not
it just
gonna do it at all.
it spreads lead dust.
Yeah.
It just does. Without that water without the wet and the Dawn dishwashing liquid in it, it doesn't tend to, it just does spread it.
Yeah, and so I know when we have health fairs and things like that, that's some of the prizes were cleaning kits, because that is so important. It's so important that you clean and that children aren't exposed, 'cause that's where they get it from. And even though, and that's another thing, we can't, when we find out these kids are high, the family, maybe 2 or 3, the children, we can't move them out of the house right away. We'd like to, but yet we have to teach them how to live in a home that has lead in it, and it can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah, with cleaning and good nutrition for the child, and leaving shoes at the door and things like that. You can really decrease the exposure in your own home, so that's important too.
Yeah, I used to live in a house built in 1932 on the south end, and we had a lead dust problem. When I moved in, the walls, all the plaster was breaking, and we basically had to renovate the whole house. Our particular issue is our house got hit by lightning, and therefore we had to basically, I call it Swiss cheesing the walls to put back the electrics in, because our whole electrical system got burned up. So we did plastic everything off. We followed all the RRP, renovation, repair, and paint rules. But at the same time, after you're done with that, you still need a proper cleaning, because I tested my windows before cleaning, and we were at 300, 400 micrograms per square foot, which is 100 is the limit, and that is a ton of lead dust in our windows. So we made sure we cleaned everything up. We used a HEPA filter vacuum to vacuum off our furniture and all of our, we went from top to bottom, ceiling fans, everything, and cleaned everything, and it worked. Because I tested it again, and we found nothing. So cleaning is just such an important part of staying lead safe.
It really is, and if your children are elevated, we need to have the house assessed, see what's going on in the houses. Where is the exposure? Can we do something about it? And sometimes it's minimal. There's grants out there for people that own their own home, and also for renters, that the landlords would be able to get money to fix up your home too.
Dr. Wood and I talked about the importance of minimizing your exposure, you and your children, to lead dust using lead-safe cleaning techniques. I wanted to personally thank Dr. Wood for her expertise, her work in the community, and for this interview. You can live lead safe in a home built before 1978. More information on lead poisoning only helps to benefit us all, our community, and anyone who lives in a home built before 1978. I'm Anthony Weaver, and for more videos about lead-safe cleaning, lead-safe resources, visit leadpaintdetectives.com. You can also find Lead Paint Detectives on Facebook, and as usual, comment, like, subscribe to my channel for more lead issues.